U.S. President Donald Trump says he wants to reopen one of the country's most notorious prisons, Alcatraz, as a symbol of his tough stance on crime. Alcatraz prison was built on an island 2 kilometers off the coast of San Francisco, and it was supposed to be impossible for inmates to escape. But the facility only held some 300 prisoners, and it was closed in 1963 after just 3 decades due to its high operating costs. These days, it operates as a museum and a major tourist attraction for San Francisco. Well, now, more than 60 years after it held any convicts, President Trump is ordering a massive investment to restore and expand the site, saying that the country needs more prison space.
Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate, right? Alcatraz, Sing Sing and Alcatraz, the movies. But it's right now a museum, believe it or not. A lot of people go there. It housed the most violent criminals in the world, and nobody ever escaped.
Well, I'm joined now by Dr. Dreisinger. She's founder and executive director of Incarceration Nations Network. She's also a professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. Professor, it's good to have you with us. So let me ask you, what do you make of Alcatraz 2.0? Is that what the U.S. needs?
Certainly not. What I make of it is that it's just another act of political theater in the name of law and order on the part of Trump and the administration. He is deeply engaged in fomenting a narrative around the quote unquote dangerous criminals that we need to get rid of. And he concocts these schemes in order to gain the attention of the American public and act like the law and order president that some Americans want and voted for. Yeah. But it's a totally unrealistic plan. It's not grounded in anything practical beyond, again, this desire to foment this law and order narrative and promote the idea that the country is full of dangerous criminals that we need to rid ourselves of.
Well, if Trump pushes ahead with this plan, give us an idea of the kind of challenges that he's going to face trying to renovate Alcatraz.
Well, for one, it's completely out of line. I mean, it's as if he and the administration are talking out of two sides of their mouths. On the one hand, they're talking about budget cuts and DOGE and excess spending. Alcatraz was closed in part because it was too expensive to run. It's on an island. It's really a vestige of the days when countries were building these prison islands and this notion that you could just we could rid ourselves of, again, these quote unquote dangerous criminals by just sending them offshore. But it's enormously expensive to ship goods there. It's not at all a practical or realistic proposal. There's no reason, if indeed he wants to build a prison, he could build a new prison. I think, again, the act of sending people to El Salvador from this country, also an act of political theater to just showcase that he is coming down hard line on these issues, when none of it is in line with the kind of practical budget and spending that the administration is really talking about.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, I was reading up on Alcatraz earlier today, and yeah, it was shut down because the government at the time determined that it costs 3 times more per prisoner to operate than the other federal prisons in the U.S. at the time. And if you add to that the fact that the island is surrounded now by some of the most expensive real estate in the United States, I mean, you would think that it would be incredibly expensive to want to do anything there. But what about this notion of taking the hardened criminals and putting them somewhere geographically where they are separated from the rest of society? Is there a reason to think that that could work if given another chance?
Absolutely not. I think, first of all, the very term of this violent criminal, and these are it's fomenting a narrative that those of us who are truly engaged in criminal justice reform don't agree with and also don't find productive. We need to talk about people who are causing harm, people who are committing crimes, and engage in genuine programs that offer them opportunities. So we really need to move away from this whole narrative and that particular language. And not to mention, Alcatraz is a national park. It makes a lot of money for the area. So to remove it and suddenly turn it into this fantasy of, a containment area is also a money loss reality. So, I mean, really, I think that Trump just yanked it from Hollywood and wanted to pick the most famous example of a prison and say, let's bring back this awful prison, instead of thinking about what actually builds safe communities.
Shortly after Trump returned to office, he ordered the opening of a detention center at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. I think it was, to hold up to 30,000 people. How is that progressing?
I think, I mean, it's hard to say because it's hard to get actual information. And I think for us in the U.S., there was a tremendous sense of, again, those of us on the front lines of the movement in the U.S. felt a tremendous sense of grief because we were moving towards closing Guantanamo Bay. There are so many questions about the practices there and so many problematics around it. So it feels like a massive regression, not only in terms of the action, but again, in terms of the rhetoric that really does nothing but stir fear in the American public. And a fearful public is willing to go along with whatever leaders are saying.
Trump is talking about reopening Alcatraz. What tangible impact would you say his policies are having on crime prevention in the United States?
We're already seeing massive budget cuts in programs like violence intervention programs, and other community safety initiatives are losing tremendous amounts of money and threaten much of the progress that's been made in that domain. Many of the programs operating in prisons and operating to support people coming out of prisons, again, budgets are being cut. That will all make us less safe. Not to mention the near eradication of U.S. foreign aid is what vastly supports so many communities overseas. So if you're truly worried about migration and immigration, then don't cut foreign aid. Figure out a way to have that foreign aid better support the organizations that are creating stability throughout the global South and the world, and create reasons for people to not migrate. That's what smart on crime and smart on borders looks like, instead of this approach, which again is simply political theater.
I want to ask you, before we let you go, since you're focusing on criminal justice, what went through your mind? I think it was this weekend when the president was asked if he is for due process for everyone, and his answer was he doesn't know.
I, like many, many people here in the U.S. and all of us on the front lines of the movement, were horrified by such a statement. Due process is what the law is founded on. It's what this country is founded on. And we are increasingly tired of and frustrated by this kind of rhetoric that doesn't respect the law, that doesn't respect the Constitution, and again, is not the way to build the kind of safe communities that we all want to live in the U.S. and globally speaking.
Vance Dreisinger, the founder and executive director of Incarceration Nations Network. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us on this Monday evening. Thank you.
Thank you.